Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. As you might have guessed from the title of today's video, we're going to be talking a little bit about sororities. So I decided to go through sorority about 2 months ago, sort of as a last minute decision. I had seen Rush Week advertised on our campus's webpage, and I was like, oh, this would be a great opportunity for me to get to meet more people and get to make these connections on campus. I was a new student at the time, a freshman at this particular college. I came in with, I think 80 credits, so technically I was a junior, but it was my freshman year at this particular college. And I didn't know anyone. Most of my friends either lived far away or they chose to go to a different college, so I was kind of on my own, essentially a loner on campus. And I was like, oh, this will be a great opportunity because I'll be forced to hang out with people, which is basically how I've sort of learned to overcome my social anxiety. I have what they call an introvert personality, so it's really difficult for me to put myself out there. It feels like it just sucks all the energy right out of me. Anyways, so I thought this would be a great opportunity. And so basically what Rush Week or recruitment week is like, I believe on the first night they kind of do sort of an informational thing where it's basically about you meeting the other potential new members, the PNMs as we call it, and just getting to know each other a little bit. It kind of helps to break the ice. They basically have you do a couple of exercises where they'll give you a question or a prompt, and you'll have to match up with somebody randomly, and you each take a turn answering whatever the question or prompt was. It's actually not as scary as it originally sounded. Everyone was just as nervous as I was, which made it a lot easier for me. Most of them were also, like, actual freshmen, so me having already had 80 credits and this just being a new environment, I still had that already, college confidence where I kind of already knew how things worked. And then the second day is house tours. So after you've learned just a little bit about what each sorority is about, which is something they go over with you at your informational, they'll split you up in groups, like smaller groups, and you'll get to go and visit each of the houses who are participating in recruitment week. My campus only has a couple sororities. I'm not going to name any specific ones because I don't want anyone to get any negative views about any particular group. But so I only had a couple of houses to go through, so it wasn't too grueling. But I know there are larger campuses that might have 8 or 9 sororities or fraternities, and so house tours can actually take quite a while because I think each group will spend like 30 minutes in each house. That's about what it was for me. House tours was honestly the most exhausting of recruitment week. Basically, each house you go into, they do, usually when you walk through the doors, they sing some kind of, song that they do, or they're all just in a big group. They all basically say hi, hello. We've all seen those sort of scary looking videos of the girls doing the door stack where they all get in the door and they do the jazz hands at you. Luckily none of them did that for me. They all usually just, I think most of them sang, but it wasn't super creepy. It was really basically just a way to welcome you into their house and give you an idea of what they stand for. Each song kind of talks a little bit about their house and friendship and sisterhood. And then once you're in the house, they basically do this thing where multiple girls from multiple older members will come up to you and they'll talk to you for maybe, I don't know, a minute to 3 or 4 minutes. And then they do what they call bumping, which is basically where another girl will randomly walk up to you while you're talking and they'll swap places. And you essentially, for the most part, you're essentially having to repeat the same kind of information over and over to different girls. Ignore the stuff on my hand, I just got through filming a makeup video. So that's kind of very exhausting. Basically, every girl will ask you, where are you from? Why did you come to this campus? What made you want to join recruitment? And I've noticed from a lot of the new girls that going through recruitment was also a last minute decision for them as well. Not a whole lot of us had really planned on it, which I think is kind of interesting. And after they bump you around, probably, I don't know, 12 times, and you're forced to basically reintroduce yourself to these tons and tons of girls. Afterwards, you basically leave the house, you move on, and then you have to do all of that again at another house. You are allowed to ask them a couple questions about the sorority during this time. However, they're limited to what they're allowed to tell you because essentially of what will come later on when they start cutting girls, meaning that you don't get re-invited back to the house, meaning essentially that they don't want you there. Which is part of the thing that I kind of don't like about recruitment week. I mean, I understand it. Obviously, they can't have the entire campus, all 100 and however many girls decide to join their house because there's a cap, a quota of how many girls they can have. But it is kind of really sad when you find out you've been cut from a house. I didn't get cut until the fourth day, something like that, when I was cut the first time, and it was really sad. Some girls, I only got cut from one house right off the bat, but there was a couple girls who were immediately cut from all except one, which means they only had one option, which is really heartbreaking for a lot. It really hurts your self-esteem, because even I felt like I did great at several of the houses, and then later on as it got closer to the final cuts, I was cut. And it was kind of like, well, why wasn't I good enough? You know, what did I say that made these people not like me? What did they rank me on? Which I'll tell you about in another video. And then the third day after the house tours, well, let me go back a little bit. So the second day after house tours, you will go and you will rank the houses based on who you liked the best. We did it electronically, where we logged into a specific site and we just dropped them over one by one based on who we liked first, who we liked the least. I think sometimes they can do it like a paper vote. Electronic was just easier, and I think it bypasses any potential human errors or cheating, so to speak. And then on the third day in the morning, you will come back and they will give you a piece of paper that shows you which houses asked you back. And it might only be one house, it might be all the houses. For us, I think we were only allowed to go back to 2 houses max on the third day. So I went back to 2, which means I got cut from one of them, which unfortunately was the house that I wanted in the most. So with that being said, I do recommend anybody who's going through recruitment to not do any research about any of the houses prior to recruitment, because it will sort of make you biased and you'll have these certain expectations for each house, and you'll already, you know, have your negative feelings towards one house that might not even necessarily be true. Unfortunately, that's what I did, so I had already had my mind set on what house I wanted in. Oh, excuse me. So definitely I would say don't do that. Don't do any research. Go into it completely blind. It makes things so much easier for you and so much less heartbreaking if you don't get into the house that you originally wanted. So once you've been invited back to the houses, you go back into the actual house again, and they do more bumping where they essentially talk to you again, and then they also tell you a little bit about their philanthropy. It's essentially, this third round is called the philanthropy round. Each house has a philanthropy, which is basically like a charity or service, some type of organization that is very important to them and the one that they do the most charity and service events for. I'm not going to tell you what the house that I picked philanthropy was, because it would be easy to search it and figure out which one I'm in, which, like I said, I don't want any group to have any negative views about anything based on what I'm probably going to say in a later video. So they usually show you, I think every house shows like a little informative video that they've made that discusses, you know, some of the events they do and why whatever philanthropy they chose is important to them. And then basically after that you leave yet again and you will rank the houses once more based on who you liked most and who you liked least. You don't have to rank a house at all if you don't want to, if you're dead certain that you don't want to be in that house. But like I said, that does lower your chances of actually getting placed into a house, because they might be the only house that wanted you back and you've already eliminated them. Therefore, you are done with recruitment week. And then the next day you come back for what is called the preference round, which from my understanding, is basically where instead of the sororities interviewing you, you're interviewing the sorority. Basically, you come in and they talk to you about more in depth about what the sorority does, what kind of events they're involved in, what the sorority life has been like for them. They continue to do sort of the bumping thing again, but there's not quite so many girls, so it's not, you know, quite so rushed around. I think on that day I probably spoke to 4 or 5 girls instead of the original 12, 15 that I spoke to on the first day. It's basically like their way of persuading you to rank them higher than the other houses, so that they can get their pick of who they want, regardless of how you rank them. Because if everybody ranks them high, then essentially they can pick whoever they want. But if everybody ranks them low, then that might eliminate them from the possibility of getting to ask that person to join. And then, after you've done that, you will rank the houses one more time, based on who you liked the most and who you liked the least. And then the next day is what they call bid day. Bid day is probably the most exciting and most fun day, however, it's also the most stressful. Basically, you will get a call stating whether or not you have a bid. A bid is essentially an invitation for you to join said sorority, or fraternity. I'm assuming it's the same for the guys. And if you get a bid, they don't tell you who it is. You go into, or at least, I don't know if it's the same for everywhere, but for us, went into this big room and they gave us an envelope with our name on it. And then when the time came, we would all open our envelopes at the same time, and it would be an invitation from your house who's asked you to join. And then basically everybody from each house gets together and you run to your house as a group, sort of like a bonding activity, so that you can embrace with all the older members. It's a really huge celebration. It's basically an acceptance of you into their group. And then the rest of the bid day, once you've done that, is basically just party. You usually sing and dance and, you know, play games, take lots of photos. Photos are a huge thing. Sororities love to document everything they do. So yeah, that was a big deal. Also, so there are a couple of things about sororities that I really seem to like, and there are a couple things that I disagree with. So the first thing that I like is the concept of sisterhood. This is essentially something that was very moving when I was talking to a lot of girls, is how committed they are to each other. It's essentially a family away from family. If you're going to college somewhere that's far from home, where you probably don't know anyone, it's a great way to really just have a home there with you. They're all essentially your brothers and sisters. You support each other through everything. You look out for each other. It's a really big deal. That being said, there are quite a few negative things that I'm really struggling with. The first is the concept of what I believe is essentially you're giving up a lot of freedoms by joining a group like this. My first couple days being there, these were things that I wasn't told during recruitment week. They were told after I agreed to join, which is the part that I think is a little bit messed up about recruitment week, which I understand there's not a whole lot of time to go through every single, you know, policy or procedure that a sorority has during recruitment week. However, there was a lot that I think should have been mentioned because they might have been deal breakers for a lot of people. First being that a lot of sororities really require their members to live in their house. Some smaller sororities don't, which is great. However, even if you don't live in the house, you end up paying dues that include board and room fees, even though you're not rooming there, essentially because most sororities will still allow you to come and eat with the other girls who do live there, so you have to pay quite a bit out of pocket for that. There's also, basically you kind of lose a lot of your self-identity. They tell you how to dress, you know, what type of things that you're allowed to post on your social media, which I kind of knew that to some extent. I knew, obviously, I'm not going to be allowed to post pictures of myself drinking or partying or just anything that's not very classy. I knew that ahead of time. I mean, those are good guidelines for just about any group. However, There are even certain, like, memes or vines or things like that that I'm encouraged to not post, or I could potentially be asked to take down because they might have a curse word in it, or it might be something that somebody else finds offensive. And everything that I do basically reflects my sorority. So I'm kind of restricted on what I'm allowed to say. I'm not allowed to have any crazy radical political views, which I don't have anyways, but there are people who politics is a huge part of their life, and so they do post about it on social media. I'm not allowed to do that. A lot of the events require you to wear certain attire, which I knew there was going to be events that were like formal, where you have to dress really nice, or there was going to be like casual events. However, I have events where I'm required to wear, for example, our ritual events, which are things like new member pledging, initiation, big little reveals, which is like big sister, little sister type reveals, where I am required to wear a white dress. Length doesn't matter, but you cannot show any tattoos, which really sucks for me because I have tattoos on about, I don't know, 40% of my body, which means I had to get a floor-length dress that also covered my back and part of my chest. And if you don't get a garment that covers all your tattoos, you have to either cover those tattoos with makeup or tape. Yes, I said it. Tape. It's athlete's tape, so it's like that white, almost medical grade tape. However, when you have as many tattoos as I have, it's such a pain to have to cover your tattoos. And I also have a mild latex allergy, so a lot of latex-based adhesives make my skin break out in hives. So that kind of sucks. Another thing I noticed among the girls, luckily it doesn't apply to me because I don't have any facial piercings, but for those who have facial piercings that they can't easily remove, they also have to cover those with tape. So there were literally girls walking around with tape on their noses or their eyebrows because they weren't allowed to show their piercings because it's considered unpure or unnatural. And I'm like, what's natural about wearing tape on your face? Like, at least the piercings look good. The tape just makes you look ridiculous. But apparently those are sorority rules, not just house rules, meaning that they're the same throughout the entire organization from the national level. So I don't really agree with those types of things. I also have to wear specific colored shoes to a lot of events, which I have a lot of shoes, but a lot of my shoes kind of look the same because I have one specific style that I sort of stick to. So they're like, oh, you have to have white shoes or brown shoes, or you have to have white shoes, but they can't have any like cork on them. So like if you're wearing like white wedges that have the cork wedges, can't wear those. They gotta be all white. It's so overwhelming that it's scary. Like, it's almost cult-like, the amount of rules that they have. Let's see, what's something else to do? They always, at least my sorority, and I think a lot of them are this way, all have some religious tie to them. So usually when you eat, you all say prayer, which is kind of unfortunate for people who aren't religious, who might not be comfortable doing that. You don't necessarily have to participate, but they do have to do it around you, so you have to be there for it, even if that's not really your cup of tea. It's basically all about being respectful, so you have to tolerate whatever it is that they believe in, even if it's not what you believe in. Let's see, what's some other stuff?